Beyond the Veil, exploring holistic realms. Journey into the unknown, combining holistic perspectives with the supernatural and delving into the mysteries of life and death experiences with your host, Julia.
Hello and good evening. Welcome to the 7th episode of Beyond the Veil, Exploring Holistic Realms. I am your host, Julia Evans, and I have a very special guest with me here tonight because I am broadcasting in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. I flew out today, so it was a 9-hour trip to come see my best friend on a whim to explore the beautiful world that we have out here. So I have my best friend, Christina, with me tonight. So we're going to do our first live interview with Christina and myself. So she's going to ask me questions and going to go on the fly. So as Christina was picking me up today from the airport, and I keep looking at her for those who are just tapping on for the first time, I do all of my radio shows kind of on the fly. And just like I was telling Christina today, she asked, well, what are we going to talk about? And I said, I have no idea. We kind of read the energy of the room. We read the energy of what's happening in our environment, and we just read where we're at. This can be viewed after on the Lily Nurse, Julia Evans - the Lily Nurse. That is my YouTube channel. And all other of the 6 other episodes are on there as well, if you care to listen again or if you want to hear it for the first time. So let me do a little intro to my best friend here. Now, Christina was out she keeps waving to the screen. It is live, my dear, on radio too, so you have to talk into the mic. So Christina and I met, how many years ago? 6, 7 years ago?
Yeah, the fall of 2017.
Oh, gosh.
Fall of 2017.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
I know.
That's a long time ago. Yeah.
Right before Halloween.
Right before Halloween. So the story of us becoming best friends is we were at gymnastics. I was at gymnastics with my daughter, and her husband was with their girls at gymnastics. And I started talking about my love for Halloween. And Mark had said, oh, my wife would really like to hang out with you. And how did that conversation go there, Christina?
Well, he came home. We had been living in Regina for about 6 months at the time, and I was grieving the loss of one of my best friends since childhood that had passed away before we moved out there, and also just having a difficult time settling into a new place. So he came home and essentially said something to the effect of, I found you a friend.
And Christina says, I can find my own friends.
That's exactly it. I can find my own friends. And then, but I was like, okay, whatever. The next week, I decided, okay, I'll bring Emily to gymnastics. We'll see how this goes. And of course, Julia came and found me, being Julia, and was like, I was told I need to come talk to you. And I'm like, wow, this can't get any better. Now he's telling other people I need to find friends. But within about, less than 5 minutes, I think, it became very clear that he was right.
Yeah.
He knows me well. Yeah. And he definitely sensed we had very similar energies. And I think we very quickly realized it had went much deeper and more spiritual than a shared love of Halloween and an extroverted nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So other episodes that I've talked about, I have another business called Terra Nova Terra, What Are You Afraid Of? And I do a very big Halloween celebration, not just with Samhain, but because that is like my new year of the year with pagan tradition. But I do a haunted house, and I do a blackout maze in my haunted house, and I love dressing up. And I think I had just come back, or not back, that sounds really bad. I just finished a Halloween party the night before when I met your husband.
Yes.
And I think I still had my wig on because my hair was so bad. It may have been a late party. And he's like, wow, you like dressing up too, just like my wife. Yeah. But yeah, that whole spiritual aspect, that was, I think, the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Now, this was Christina and I met, and I'm going to say it as she met me in my previous life. And so Christina and I, like she said, she was grieving the loss of your friend,
Yeah.
Renee. So let's just honor Renee for a minute because she just popped in the room. So I was grieving other things on my journey as well with my mom and whatnot. And for those who are tapping on for the first time, not only do I do this show, but I'm a best-selling author of The Lily Nurse Rebooted, Rebirth, and Finding a New Path. And it's about my near-death experience. So that's why I'm kind of veering towards this, that Christina met me in my past life or my previous life. And from the moment that we met each other, we're very similar. Like, yes, we like dressing up, we like doing Halloween, but there was something that was lost. And I always said that my mom pushed me towards meeting you.
Yes. And then we, even before I said it, my mom actually had said to me, I feel like Julia was sent to you by Renee.
Yeah.
Like my mom had said, my mom and I are very close, and she had said that to me. And I think it was very true. We just felt like it was a friendship that was meant to happen.
Yeah, 100%. So Christina is one of my soul sisters, always has been from the second we met and locked eyes together. It was just this journey that we were supposed to be together, however many miles are in between us, because Christina and her family lived in Saskatchewan, where we were from, where we were at the time. And when they moved to Nova Scotia because of work and whatnot, Christina and I never lost any part where we can pick up the phone and we just become intertwined in the conversation to talk for hours. So my best friend here is like, what are we going to talk about? Are we going to be able to talk this long?
Right.
We're going to try very hard not to talk over because we're very good at talking. But
That's true.
Christina was there, and like I said, I don't ever plan on what I'm going to talk about, but Christina was there after my near-death experience as well. And she was there before I wrote my book, and she saw a journey that I needed, and perhaps because my mother couldn't be here physically, and Christina loves the butterflies that I've talked on other episodes as well.
It was another one of our shared connections.
Very
for sure.
much shared.
Yeah.
We have this beauty between us. And I know on other episodes I talk about paranormal activity and ghosts and spirits that come in. And some people kind of veer away from that because this show is about the seen and unseen, the known, the unknown, life, death, everything in between, but that veil. And some people really shy away from that supernatural, that paranormal. But it doesn't have to be scary because like what Christina and I have experienced is like that angel light substance. And I said light, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So my dear, tell me a little bit, or tell my viewers a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Oh, that's a great question. She put me on the spot.
And no lying, you're not a...
I'm not a good liar, so no. No, let's see. Well, I'm an East Coast girl, as we mentioned earlier. So when I moved out to Saskatchewan, it was from Halifax, but I was actually born in Newfoundland, which is another beautiful province in Canada, if you ever have the opportunity to go there. And I grew up in Halifax, really loved being here, but had traveled to lots of other places as well. And I'm an occupational therapist by day and a care coordinator. But that's just one part of my world, of course. I love reading. I love writing. I write poetry as well. Perhaps someday we'll publish. We'll see. I have been quite inspired by Julia's journey with all of that. Actually, I was thinking this is not about me, it's about you. But when you mentioned about your book, The Lily Nurse, I was thinking how I believe I was one of the first people to read an excerpt from that book.
Yes, you were.
Yeah. I can remember we were on a walk in the park by the Legislative Building, Wascana Park. And we sat on a bench and you had pulled out a piece of paper with one of the first excerpts from it.
I think you were the first one to ever read my book.
I don't know if it possibly your ex-husband maybe had read some first. Can't remember exactly, but I think I may have been the first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I forgot about that memory.
Yeah.
And the part that you're talking about was the first 8 pages of my book.
Yes.
About that I'm ready for this journey, and that's the title of it was the prelude, but it was I Am Ready. And it was that plea of, I am ready to lead the path, and having the stars and the moon, the sky, everything aligned. Yeah, I sat on those 8 pages for probably a long time, months. I think I talked to you. You were one of the first people that I had talked about the spirituality component that I was living through with my awakening. Right. And I think that was more scary, to be honest, to actually admit to somebody that I could, especially somebody in the Western medicine field as well.
I almost feel like it would almost be like a little bit of a coming out, like the sense of like there shouldn't be any shame around it or idea about being judged. But I think that for some people there'd be a sense of like people are not going to believe me. They're not going to,
I love
trust
that
in my experience.
I love that you said that, the coming out, because our society is so good at like the coming out, coming out of the closet for any level. Like, is it gay, lesbian? I mean, that's like, would be a whole other section or segment. But the whole coming out of who you are, and it doesn't matter if it's your sexuality, but it's just who you are as an individual. Yeah, I actually forgot. Thank you for that memory.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I think, Christina, you were we did talk about it in the car, and I said I would talk a little bit about some of the things we've gone through.
Of course.
Now, when I left nursing, because I am a registered nurse, and after my near-death experience, so that would be May 2018. So Christine and I had already been friends for, well, not quite a year at that point.
Yeah.
But getting there, and just coming to gymnastics after I came out of the hospital and telling you the story very casually, like, oh yeah, I'm out of the hospital, I died last week. And you're like, oh, what?
Well, I can actually, because I can very vividly remember seeing you had a social media post from the hospital, and you had, the
heart monitor.
Thank you. Yes, I was struggling for words there. Even though I do work in a health profession, I'm like, the things, the wires on the things. I'm not a nurse. I'm never going to be. Don't deal well with blood. But no, you had exactly. And I think I had sent you a private message before that and was like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And because you certainly had, at that point in time, probably because you were still in shock, we're just more presenting it as I had this incident, but it's okay. I'm just so grateful that I'm here, without, of course, any of the, backstory, which is a whole other, as you say, a whole other segment, right? Because the highlight reel of life that we all post on social media, right?
Yeah.
So, which we're all guilty of, I think, anybody who uses social media, right?
Well, it's our crutch.
It is our crutch. And also, you're a naturally positive person. So I think that you were, for those types of things, I feel like you were trying to share your true experience that you had this event happen, but also, stating I'm okay. And I think physically you're very strong, and physically at that time you were probably feeling maybe a lot better or quite okay, but all these other emotional and spiritual things were happening that you hadn't quite fully got your head around yet.
Oh, well, and what was it? The 5th episode, I was talking about the chapter that I had found, and I don't know if you'd heard that one yet. But it was something that I found, and you can go back to that episode and look at my YouTube channel. But it was my 5th episode on change, and I was looking for my BodyTalk book, and I found it in my original writings of my book. Remember that big binder?
Yeah.
And it was on the last chapter that Tiffany Wolf, my editor from Helium Communications, had pulled out, and she said, "No, this is more than one book." And the chapter was 43. What I've learned. Right. And in my book, my first book, because my other ones will be coming out, I talk about kind of like the experience and the trauma that I experienced within that. But I didn't actually talk about the things that I learned. And it wasn't until the end of the book when I start talking about my 1-year anniversary of realizing what happened, and that's when I started realizing at that point what happened to me, not just emotionally but spiritually, that I actually had an awakening. But I think you probably saw it before I did, because I think back then you were really, I remember you and I would have our traditional dress up parties and sit down, and it doesn't matter if it was in the middle of winter or the summer, we would be dressing up, wear a costume and just love life to the fullest.
Right.
And then have these like huge in-depth conversations. I actually forgot about that until you just said that. I would talk about that spiritual and how Renee would come to you, and then I would tell you about how my mom came to me, and it was just normal.
Yeah.
It was this normal conversation with somebody you love and not being ostracized. So yeah. And then of course Christina and we call each other moon goddesses, because when you left Nova Scotia, and I get choked up every time I think it, I was going through a difficult time with the separation of my husband.
When I left Saskatchewan.
Or sorry,
Yeah, to come back to Nova Scotia. You said when I left Nova Scotia.
Oh,
but
sorry.
I knew what
Maybe
you meant.
that's wishful thinking.
That's
No.
right. When
Okay.
I moved back from Saskatchewan.
Yeah, and you came back to Nova Scotia.
And it was a really difficult time, because you had I can remember the last time that we saw each other before I moved was right around the time you were officially moving out in September, correct?
Yeah.
It was, just the timing of it all was not the best.
That was our last dress up party, and last one in person.
Last one in person, yeah.
Last one in person was those dress up parties.
And then I saw you again at that park we went to with the kids.
Yeah.
That was the very last time.
That was the very last time.
Yeah. Anyways, we were talking about the moon.
Yeah,
now.
but
in one of those last meetings, I remember you saying something. Yeah, go ahead.
So I was really having like a very distraught and another awakening of like, who am I? And not only who am I spiritually, but now who am I emotionally, without these boxes and constructs of I'm a wife of 19 years. I'm this. I was stepping away from so much. But I always looked at the moon since I was little. And I honored the moon and the cycles and just that femininity of it. And you and I talked about it and said, it doesn't matter where we are in the world. It'll be like we're standing beside each other, holding each other's hand, looking at the same moon. And so even to this day, you and I still, every time there's a full moon, we send each other pictures.
Yes, I love it. Yeah, we always send each other our photos, and then I sent Julia actually a crescent moon bracelet a few years ago for her birthday from one of my favorite little shops here in Halifax called the Black Market. It's been here, I think, since the early 80s or definitely not late 90s. Mid 80s, early 90s. Anyhow, little shout out to the Black Market. I'll bring her there tomorrow.
Yes. I'll discuss that next week of what I buy at the Black Market.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yes, and so I sent that to her as another little symbol of that. But it is so true. And tonight, of course, it's very fitting that it's not a full moon, but you could see the moon tonight when she arrived with beautiful partial crescent moon.
It's gorgeous. So last week I was talking about how cold it is in Saskatchewan. So I went from minus 52 to Nova Scotia. What is it here?
I think tonight's about minus 10.
Minus 10. Yeah, I could wear shorts. It's gorgeous out here. But the first thing, this is my house. No, look at the moon.
It's so true. It's so true. I was like, look how gorgeous the stars are here.
Yeah. So we actually got to stand there side by side and got to breathe that in. It was a beautiful moment.
It was.
Yeah, Christina, because she's in the health field, and that's why I wanted you to introduce yourself as well.
Yeah.
Because she has a Western medicine background, as do I, because I'm a registered nurse. And Christina does a lot of spiritual things too from... you've done tea readings, or you've had it done with you?
Oh, I haven't done them myself, but I mean, I'm quite into meditation. I do a lot of meditation. I meditate every morning. And certainly I like to do introspective things like journaling and whatnot. But in terms of mediums that methods or modes that I've turned to, I guess, for lack of a better word, I mean, I have not had my tea leaves read, actually. That would be a good one. But I've had tarot done on me a few times, including by this lovely lady here.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Oh, yes, I do that too.
Yeah, she does that too. And I've had Reiki. And then BodyTalk was my only time I've ever had BodyTalk was actually with Julia.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple interesting experiences with you with BodyTalk, which I can share one.
Yeah, we'll go through that. Like. So Christina was with me when I left nursing, and I've talked about this on other episodes of I didn't know where to go with it, but I know I needed to step away for a little bit to see what the universe had in store for me. I wanted to learn about the energy of this world, and it was healing for me as well, but I wanted to learn more from what I experienced from my near-death experience. And you and I had talked about that in our many teas and many wines and whatever we needed to do on our path. But I remember sitting with you and asking, like, do you think this is a good idea? Like, I want to try this. And you just said, like, follow your heart, and whatever is guided your way, try it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then you had one of your first experiences with Body Talk was with me, you said. And so one of my, I think it was episode 2, I talked about I'm a certified Body Talk practitioner and what I do as a holistic practitioner. But I've never had anybody online saying their experience of a session. So would you mind
Absolutely
divulging what you would like to divulge?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
So I went into the session quite open-minded. I had actually never even heard of Body Talk before my lovely close friend started studying it. And she was, you are very articulate and you did your best to describe what it would feel like or what it would be like to experience. But of course, it's a very unique environment, and it's not something that you can really describe the way one can describe something like more of those Western medicine things, like you say, like massage therapy or physiotherapy. So I just went in with an open mind, not knowing really what to anticipate. And I just remember laying on the table in your lovely room, and you doing the different tapping and whatnot, and explaining to me what you were doing and asking some questions about how I was feeling. And at this point in time in our friendship, as I mentioned, Julia and I kind of became soul sisters early on in our friendship. So she certainly knew that I had experienced a great loss, and the loss of my friend Renee. And she was certainly picking up on some of the grief and unfinished thoughts around that. But I distinctly remember her asking me to to think of a moment of great joy that I had experienced with Renee. And just a little backstory there. So Renee and I had been friends since we were 6 years old. We went through all kinds of unimaginable ups and downs together. By the time she passed, she was just 2 months shy, almost to the day of 36 years old. So we had been through the many things together. So I had numerous things I could imagine of moments of joy that I had experienced with her that I could have maybe pulled on. But the one that came to my mind was one where we had been on a trip with some other friends in England. And we had one friend who was just known for being particularly silly. And we were at the Brighton Pier at this beautiful amusement park area. And there was a mechanical bull, which seems like a funny thing to bring up during this kind of discussion. But there was this mechanical bull, and we had our friend Michelle get on this mechanical bull. And we were just all so present and so joyful and laughing and in the moment. So that's what I was thinking of during the Body Talk session with Julia, was that particular moment. And that was not a moment that I had ever, or a memory I'd ever described to you before.
No. And nor were you even talking about it during the session.
And I wasn't talking about it during the session. She was just asking me to imagine a moment of great joy that I experienced with Renee. And that was just the one that, for whatever reason, that day popped in my mind. And I didn't verbalize it. And I don't even know that you had known that I'd gone on a trip to England with Renee or with those friends. So, and anyhow, so I went back home that evening. I felt really good after the session. Went back home that evening and just kind of felt, I guess, pulled towards this little jewelry box that I had on my dresser in my room. It was a gift that I had given to Renee years prior, and then when she had passed away, I had asked her mom if I could have it back because it was just something that felt special to me to have. The inside inscription on it says "Forever Friends, Forever True," and it was like essentially like a little clay formation of the silhouette of two young women sitting face to face, facing each other. And I hadn't opened it in I couldn't even remember how long, but I just felt this sense of pull towards it to open it. And when I opened it, there was a keychain in there that Renee had purchased on that trip. That's a little teddy bear that said "I Heart London" on it. And it just made the whole experience just feel that much more real. It's like I couldn't quite describe what Body Talk was or what Julia had done with me during the session, but I knew that something kind of miraculous, magical, whatever word you want to use, had happened or had shifted, because it just felt, very meant to be, and very much like, oh, that was like that Renee was there with me in some way, or there was something more to it that was happening, So that was
when there was that. Because there was, you said right at the beginning of introducing yourself, that grief component, right? Like that's why you came out. Well, that's not why you came out to Saskatchewan, but there was a lot of grief tied to
Oh, yeah.
life.
And I think, I mean, I think it certainly wasn't why, but that definitely, I think, played a role in it because, you know, my husband was offered this opportunity out there, and, you know, I will lead with, I'm so grateful that we took it. I think we were meant for him to take it. If we hadn't, I obviously wouldn't have met Julia. I wouldn't have done a lot of the personal growth work and mental health work that I did on myself while I was out there. However, that being said, at the time, initially when we moved, I think I would have said that the grief played a role in me accepting us moving there because I, looking back, don't think emotionally I was in the right place at all to make that kind of move. And even my husband said after the fact, like, I probably shouldn't have ever even suggested to you that we move because you weren't really in the frame of mind emotionally or spiritually or mentally to make that kind of big life decision, you know, to make a move across the country. But in the end, it was, you know,
It's meant to be.
it was meant to be. It was certainly the right move. Yeah, absolutely. But
Yeah. Well, because I remember, because I normally don't talk about people's sessions because it is confidential to my clients and whatever their journey. And a lot of time it's called BodyTalk amnesia. So a lot of times when you shift something and something's ready to heal and you're able to extract it, you get to release it fully. Sometimes we forget what that initial pain was.
Right.
But in this case, when you were talking about it, and the reason why we're bringing it up, because that was one of the first things you showed me when we came into the house, because I've never been to Nova Scotia. I've never been to Halifax. I've never been to this beautiful house here. It was the first thing you showed me in your bedroom was this box that we talked about during the session. And I said, there's something in the box that will bring your joy back.
Yeah.
And then you had like this life and this light back into your eyes and your cheeks and your smile. It was almost like you had this vision of like what life used to be, but could be. Right? Yeah. So for those who, thank you for sharing that.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
really appreciate that. For those who don't know what BodyTalk is, so when I started my journey with Christina, well, not just Christina, but she was one of my first clients.
Because you were still kind of honing in on your skills. So
Yeah. So back
I was
then,
a safe bet.
you were and she would tell me the truth if I was screwing up or whatever, right? We're honest. And that's why we're such good friends. But I described BodyTalk a lot different back then because I needed to learn the journey of it. And so BodyTalk is just realigning the communication through your cells and systems. It's when you feel like a dis-ease or a disharmony, something is out of balance in your world, something's not clear, not making sense. What a BodyTalk session does is helps you on your path. So as a practitioner, I'm not there to diagnose, prescribe, or tell you what to do, change your path in any way, but it's about changing your own perspectives and your own beliefs on the boxes that you can find yourself in. And at the moment of that, like I probably couldn't describe it to you back then how I could now, but it was that grief box.
Absolutely.
And you were stuck in that box, and all those there was no windows. It was just this box for you to like put away. Right. So even like looking back at that, I'll be interested to see how you, after I leave here, how that box will change. Because you had even said it's changed already because there's a piece missing on the keychain already.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
About I love London. And then what piece was missing off the bear?
It was one of the legs. But that was the way Donna, my friend's mom, had given it to me. So at some point in time when Renee owned it, the piece must have fallen off the leg of the keychain. So, yeah. Or the leg fell off the keychain.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, though.
Yeah. So at the time, way back then, it was hard to take that first step forward into honoring that grief and honoring what it's like to bring that joy back into your life. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
So I'm just going to throw it out there for anybody. I'm just looking at Discord as well. And just because half the show is done here, just making sure everybody is still engaged, because I'm kind of losing myself with Christina here.
It happens.
It happens. But if anybody has any questions about BodyTalk, you can message me on any one of my platforms if you're inquiring about a session. now somebody on Discord had looked up BodyTalk, and the way she looked up BodyTalk, that is not what we do.
Oh no.
And I think
Oh no.
I think she looked up at a different site, maybe for 18 plus.
Well, it's
I'm
good. It's a
thinking.
good thing I didn't look it up then when Julia told me she wanted me to come over for my private session.
You want to do what on the table?
I was like,
oh my
"Woo."
goodness.
I'm very excited about this session now.
Yeah. So if anybody's interested,
Talking about coming out.
yeah. Oh my gosh.
We're now turning this into comedy hour. Well, this is what happens with
Wah,
us.
wah.
We can go from the very spiritual, serious to the
Cen-
to the
centered.
comedic.
But if anybody is even curious and you don't want to talk to me about it, because I don't want to be pushy, a practitioner is who you want to. You are so bad, laugh out loud. A practitioner is who you get drawn to. So if anybody's drawn to me as a practitioner, I mean, by all means, reach out to me. I don't advertise or anything like that. But if you want a session from me, find me on one of my platforms. But if you are interested, and the wording that I use is different than other people's, you can even look it up. And I'm going to tell that, Chantel, it is the International BodyTalk Association. It's also known as IBA, so International BodyTalk Association. So that was what I looked up. Oh man, that was many moons ago. So that would have been November of 2018 when that came into my world. And so I had just left nursing because I wanted to see what the universe had in store for me, because I knew there was more. I knew everybody's made it out. I have 4 screens going at all times, so I'm trying to make sure, and I have a co-host tonight.
It's very impressive. It's very impressive.
But BodyTalk came into my life because I left nursing because of, yes, the trauma, but because I wasn't ready to talk about what I was experiencing, like hearing the codes. And for those who aren't in the medical field, a code is a medical emergency, like a code blue. So all hands are on deck. And so when I was starting to see these codes and people were crossing over, I could actually see people crossing over. I was starting to call the codes before they were happening.
Right.
And within Western medicine, within my world at that time, I got really nervous with that. And it almost traumatized me that how on earth can I experience this? So I wanted to delve a little bit more deeper into that about what is the energy, what is the spirituality component that I'm missing, or maybe I'm not missing it. Maybe I just boxed it away and I was ready for it to come to the surface, perhaps why that of my near-death experience. With that said, I started with Reiki training, and it was a fascinating modality, and I still do Reiki, not as much as I used to because that is incorporated in BodyTalk. And I think you were one of the first ones that I tried Reiki on too.
I think you were,
Yeah.
because I remember a lot of the tapping. And isn't the tapping more Reiki than BodyTalk in some ways?
Well, I think that was another modality I tried on you.
gosh.
I tried a lot of things.
She did not get informed consent. If there's any other healthcare professionals here, I'm just teasing. She's like, yeah, I told you what I was doing.
I told
It's
you.
fine."
It's called amnesia. No.
That's right.
No, the Reiki is just like aligning all the chakras, the torsion
right.
fields of energy.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't get further into that because it was incorporated in BodyTalk, because
That makes sense.
BodyTalk is more than just the chakras or the 7 major chakras. BodyTalk looks at like the 7 minor chakras, the 8th chakra, which is past lives, not just like your past life, but perhaps something that you are shifting in this life.
Right.
Not just that, but it incorporates the endocrine system. It was fueling my Western medicine brain, and it was calming that part of my brain to let me introduce that spiritual component, and not introduce, but bring it forth and allowing me to, like you said, come out. But I left nursing and started Reiki training. And then a week after that, I wanted a little bit more, a little bit of a understanding of like holistic nursing or like holistic practitioner or something because of our field.
Right.
And we deal with patients every day and we see the struggles that they go through. We see the struggles that our clients, our colleagues, all of us professionals are going through. And I thought there was more. And so the word practitioner, I really latched on. And like I said on one of my other episodes, I was on the laptop and it was within the witching hour, which is in between 3 and 4. And I know I keep saying I'm going to do a show on that, on what you're listening to me on, Cosmos Astrium Radio. There is an actual program or radio show called Witching Hour. So you can go on that as well. But I will discuss that another time. But that, it literally fell into my lap. And I will never forget that moment. And I think I probably messaged you the next day. And it said International BodyTalk Association while I was looking up holistic nursing.
Yes, yes.
And I wanted to look at it a little bit further. And so the next day I had called and got this information and asked, and it was a storm. And they said, well, there's a course in Saskatoon, which is a 3-hour drive from where I was at the time. And I said, if I can make it, then it's meant to be. And I just followed what the winds were leading me to. I was following what the universe wanted me to do. And that was my first moment. And I do talk about this in episode 2 of how I came to become a certified BodyTalk practitioner. And I went to Saskatoon and did this. And I learned that I'm not a fixer. And this is why I'm really emphasizing this. BodyTalk practitioners, just like any other holistic modalities, we don't prescribe. We don't change your course. We don't change your story. But sometimes we forget those tools on our journey to help us. Like we drop them along the way, or we have them in our hand and we don't know we're hanging on to it, or we're holding on to it so tight, but perhaps we need something else. But I had to learn that, and that's probably why I describe it a little bit different, because I had to let go of my own belief systems of how to help people. And I think I was talking with your husband tonight about it. We're having a very, very great conversation about like I don't need to be in the waters, like it's lifeguard rules, right? That it's hard to watch standing on the outside of the pool when you have all these tools and everything, and it looks like somebody's drowning, but all they have to do is stand up, because the pool is not that it's shallow, and it's their choice. And maybe it's not necessarily their choice when they're drowning, but it's not our job to change their journey, right? Until they're ready. And I know your husband and I were talking about that with my son on his journey right now. He's going to be 19 on Sunday, but just different things like that. And even on the plane, and I said, like, I never know what's going to transpire with these shows, because leading up to this, there's always something that I'm like, oh, I never experienced that before, but this is a healing journey, not just for me, but for those who listen. And I hope it helps whoever listens to whatever they need. But I met this girl on the plane, and I think I mentioned that I probably will bring her up.
Yeah, you did, but you didn't tell me the actual. We didn't get to.
Oh yeah, I didn't tell you. I was like,
no, this is all going to be new to me, because we were too busy catching up with all kinds of other things.
So I went from Regina, Saskatchewan to Calgary, Alberta, had a layover there, and then from Calgary I came to Halifax, Nova Scotia, which was a long journey. Now there was this girl sitting there, and we exchanged our social media platforms. And there was this girl, and she's actually from BC.
Okay. But
I noticed her in the crowd, and there was like a glow to her. And there was like this beautiful essence about her. And I just thought, it's cool beans. I think I said that last week. What do you talk about yourself? Like, do you say that to other people too? Like, oh, you got a cool hat, or like you just have a really cool glow to you. Yeah. But I never got the opportunity to say that to her, and I normally will stop and tell somebody.
Yeah, I love giving a stranger a compliment.
Yeah,
it's why not add a little joy to someone's day?
That's why we're friends.
And that's so true. And just that opportunity for a human connection, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I get on the plane, I sit in my spot, which is, of course, I don't pick where I sit. And of course, once again, it's 13, my number.
Oh, and that, well, we'll let you finish the story.
Yeah, and
but
then
yes,
you have another story.
But then, another
So
number story in our house.
I sit in number 13, and for those who don't know, 13 is with the moons. It's also with the feminine cycle. It's a very powerful number, but that was actually the bed that I passed away in. Spot 7, bed 13. But this girl that had this glow sat right beside me, and her and I talked the majority of our flight, which was, what is it? I think 5 hours or something, a 5-hour flight. And she's from BC, and she very openly talked to me about her awakening. And that she's traveled to Asia, and she used to live out here, and she's here visiting her family. But she talked about like her addictions and how she maneuvered through that, and how she's in BC and just loving life and learning how to do different things for her to heal her soul and herself, and just getting a different perspective. And we had this beautiful, intimate conversation about our journey in life. And it just goes to show that you never know who is destined to be by your side within some of the most vulnerable moments in time. A shout out to her. I don't know if she's listening tonight. You know who you are, but I wish you the best on your journey. And she had even said to me every time that she got on a plane, like even last time, she goes, "But the person who was sitting beside me had a near-death experience too." And I said, well, because there's a lot of us angels. And so when you're still stuck and not coming through the veil to be an earth angel, which I have talked on many episodes, you'll get there. And so sometimes, like I just said a little while ago, it takes a while to understand your awakening.
Right.
And sometimes that can be traumatic because it's a whole brand new version of you, whereas other people look at you as the old person and how your lens still is for them. I kind of veered off. Sometimes I go on tangents, but I love the fact, Christina, that no matter what journey I've been on, that you've always just seen me through my eyes and seen what I have in my heart and my soul, because we were brought together very spiritually, and then just have fun along the way.
That's
okay,
right.
so you had a story
It wasn't so much my story, but as much more of a moment, and it wasn't relating to the numbers.
Oh yeah.
So just a little simple thing, but just one of those, serendipitous moments in life where Julia came in tonight, and she was getting one of the first priorities after seeing my lovely children and my husband, and getting led on a detailed house tour by my 3 children.
And the 2 cats and the
2 cats and the dog, was making sure that everything would work here tonight. So of course she's like, okay, I'm going to need, to set up connect to your Wi-Fi and just make sure everything's going to broadcast okay. And so of course she goes over to look at what our passcodes are to do so. And it was the code, the backwards would basically be her spot that she passed away in. So it was 731, correct? That was for our Bell 731, I think. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that wasn't the password, but
no, it's not the password.
It's not the password. We're not giving you the password for her internet.
For my Wi-Fi. No, this was just the whatever.
Yeah, it was the network to log on to, and it said Bell 731.
And she was like,
do you see what this is?
And I was just like, no. Because even though we have a spiritual connection, she operates on a much higher level than me. I'm just like, those be some numbers. And she was like, what are those numbered backwards? And I'm still like,
and I go 7 or 13-7. And she went, oh. So I actually did a post of that, I think 2 weeks ago. And I didn't do a post today because I was on the plane today. But it was about 713. And let's see if I can find it. I'm actually going to go on Facebook here. But the post that I did was about 713. Now, I talked a little bit about Carrie Breyer. She's a girlfriend of mine. We actually have the same publisher. That's how we met, was our books came out the same day. And she's a BodyTalk practitioner. But Carrie and I do sessions with each other. We do trades because you're not a good practitioner if you don't get it done to yourself, right? If you're not taking care of yourself, how
Right.
good are you going to be for your clients, right?
Absolutely.
So Carrie and I take care of ourselves. So I wrote this post. I don't know if you saw this, but it's a picture of a path that I go on,
Oh, I did see this one.
and
Yes.
it's these trees and this wide open path. And I'm going to kind of show it on. See, it's a wide open path. So I kind of put it on Facebook so you could kind of see. But this path, and I wrote it. So I'm telling two stories at once. That's how I write my books too sometimes. But 713, for the longest time, I couldn't figure out what that meant. And it's actually, it's a scripture reading. And so it came to us probably, I think 2 years ago. Just out of the blue, we were doing a session, and I said, "Oh, it's Matthew 7:13." And I said, "Carrie, can you look that up in the Bible?" And I said 7:13, moving into 7:14, and so it is, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it." 7:14 is, "But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only few find." Now this picture is, I'm going to read the whole caption here, but it says, "Sometimes we believe that there's only one path to travel, creating a vision or an invisible wall or tunnel vision that we can't see through. Perhaps your path can be to look beyond your obstacles, dropping the veils and blocks that prevent you from seeing a world as endless possibilities. Because off the beaten path is another world of mystery, magic, and awe. Don't be afraid to look beyond your current beliefs." Now, it took the 713, even tonight, that was so significant. And it's not just the spot I died on. I know we joke about that all the time. She dies all the time. She comes back. She has frequent flyer miles. Like, I should have shirts. I should sell shirts. And for one of my other best friends, Chris, hashtag 2Lifers for Life. He's another friend of mine that has had a near-death experience. So we always joke about that we always keep coming back. But this trip alone, I was just doing my own obstacles in Saskatchewan and then looking at what other things are out there for me. And there's a whole other world. What was it, 2 weeks ago? Or what day was it? New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve, I was wishing you girls Happy New Year's Eve because you go to bed early and it's a 2-hour difference. So here in Nova Scotia or in Halifax, it's almost 11 o'clock. And I didn't have my coffee. I've been traveling since, I woke up at 4 a.m. So I've been traveling all day today.
You've had a longer day than me.
I've had a long day today.
I worked today, but I wasn't up that early.
But just on a whim,
Right.
I went on WestJet and said, there's a flight to come see you. Merry Christmas. I'm bringing me to you, and I'm going to just see what kind of adventure. So anyways, that was a long tangent on that. I'm just checking my time. Anyways, so journeys of what has happened. So every week I like to go back to what I talked about the week before. And I know the last few weeks I've been talking a lot about kind of what's happened with my girlfriend's son passing, my girlfriend who had committed suicide a few years ago, 13 years ago coming up now. And you can tap into other episodes. It's not to make you sad or anything, but a journey. This week was one of the most challenging weeks, and I'm not going to end the program with this, but I had the most amazing experience. And last week I was talking about how my girlfriend Amanda, when I wear her on my wrist, she's been popping through about that paranormal activity. She's been popping through into my world, and she's been poking me and telling me to tell the story and about what happens in Western medicine. And I know you've experienced it. I know a lot of us have that. What's the word I'm looking for? Well, it's not just burnout, but it's, I don't want to say toxic environment, but it's hard. It's really hard sometimes to watch your clients go through the things and kind of put them in boxes.
Is burden to it.
It's
I
burden.
think.
There's a burden. That's the word. Burden.
Yeah,
It's a burden
we
to
talk
it.
about, caregivers of people, having burnout, but I think that the health professionals can also carry a certain level of that burden.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so just like me as a practitioner, a BodyTalk practitioner, I get sessions from from other practitioners, but sometimes in the health profession, we don't have time, or we don't make the time to take care of ourselves. And Western medicine, I am going to say Western medicine, a lot of us don't take that time to take care of ourselves. And so my girlfriend, she was struggling with a lot of things, and she was doing counseling and doing what she needed at the time, but she had taken her life. Now, the last time I had heard that the Lloyd Minister number on my phone was when I found out about her passing.
Right.
And I had a phone call, 2 weeks ago, that somebody wants me to, I actually thought this wellness center wanted me to do a lecture there. And I said, oh, do you want me to do a lecture? And they said, oh, no, because of your experience, like you have PTSD, like post-traumatic stress disorder. And I'm like, okay. And we want to see if there's anything that we can do to help you on this journey. And so I had that interview, or that meet and greet with somebody and the team to see if there's anything that I need, or what that looks like.
Yeah.
And so I was very honest. And at the time, I was experiencing so much more. And I was talking to your husband about my experience, that Saturday, so just about a week ago, my daughter was at a volleyball tournament, and she had jumped up and landed and snapped her tibia and fibia, had to go for emergency surgery. We couldn't control her pain. There was like all these layers. I was at a hospital that I had my near-death experience in, that perhaps up to this point I wasn't ready to let go of. And yes, I do have PTSD because of different elements. That has happened, that has never been looked at. And I know I've talked about that before. I'm very open with that. I'm just checking the time here. But with that and other components, I'm not going to go into everything. I was very honest with this, and it was this beautiful journey of somebody in Western medicine to say back to me, like, I have all of your charts, and I have whatever other people have had a perception of you or your story. I'm not reading that, because it's your journey. Right. And I'm going to honor that for whatever you need to help you on your journey. I thought it was the most incredible conversation in Western medicine I have ever had.
Absolutely.
For somebody to look at the situation at hand and have a chart in hand, and not just have the chart and block themselves from seeing the patient. And I'm very honored that maybe all these years, those 13 years, have changed, like how we look at people. And even having my daughter going through surgery and trying to go through her pain control, and even one of the nurses saying, oh, I have my Reiki training, maybe we should do some Reiki on her ankle, because she would just scream. I mean, it was one of the most horrendous things as a parent to watch your child go through. But then the biggest thing that I saw with my daughter was the first night after surgery, 7 hours of a busted leg. And I didn't post it on my social media other than my personal one. It didn't just break, but it snapped. It was not good.
No. She sent me a picture of that x-ray. People say all the time, I broke my leg, and what they really mean is I have a fracture. This was when people say a break. This was a break. This was a break.
Snap.
Like,
snap.
This is not good.
So she got a rod and 2 screws in her leg, and they gave her copious massive amounts of medication to help control it. And the whole time she kept saying, from the second she dropped on that court, I can't breathe it in. It hurts too bad to breathe. And I've talked about this on other episodes. When we can't breathe like that, breathe it in fully, we don't want to breathe in what we're experiencing, because it's so bad. And it wasn't just the pain, but the mental anguish that my daughter was experiencing the second she broke her leg, because this was her first year in elite volleyball, and she's up for like so much things from like scholarships, and people are like watching her like this is the one to watch. And she just kept saying, my career's over, Mom. Everything is gone. Everything I worked for is gone. And she couldn't breathe it in. Yes, of course, a lot of pain too.
Right.
But it was her left leg, and it's like she needed to snap her into a different level of strength. But I'm going to leave this as a positive note. So the night that she came out of surgery, I stayed with her, and to watch her come out of that and scream, but she has the gift as well. And I think I told you a little bit about that to watch her start her awakening. And it's going to be a long journey for her. I don't know if it'll be the same as me, because we all have our own path and our own journey. But having her after that in that hospital setting where her mother has passed just a few levels below, and now standing there beside her as an angel that walks the earth, holding her hand. And she kept saying, there's 8 people around me telling me to go with them. And I said, well, those are the hospital spirits, Jada. You don't need to go with them. And then she would yell at them, it's not my time, it's not my time. And it was kind of scary that night. Even though she pulled through, there was so many narcotics in her. She would stop breathing. And we looked at other things that were happening, like compartment syndrome, where there's too much swelling, and it's just it could have gone any way. But there was a choice that she had within her awakening as she was watching it, and she pulled herself through in more ways, and I am so proud of her. Like, it's not the mental training, the physical, but that spiritual component that she is ready. Yeah. So I'm just going to kind of tie that whole episode together. So once again, this is Beyond the Veil, Exploring Holistic Realms with your host, Julia Evans. And tonight we have our co-host, Christina from Halifax.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming. Was it as bad as you thought?
No, it was wonderful.
She was so nervous. She wanted like a script or something.
I'm not. Anybody who knows me knows I do not need a script to talk.
No.
I have those strong Newfoundland genes within me.
You do. Yeah.
And I'm quite open, but at the same time, I was like, this is live. Oh my goodness, I've never done anything quite like this before. So
well, thank you for joining.
Yes.
Thank you for being the first one on my show.
It was fun.
If anybody would like to watch us, probably gaze at each other and watch each other talk.
Gaze at each other lovingly.
Oh, I love you. You can find me or find this episode. This is the 7th episode where everything comes into balance on YouTube. So it's Julia Evans - The Lily Nurse. There's also other episodes of Beyond the Veil. There's my previous episodes after I had coded and whatnot. And when my book first started coming out, you can view those as well. So I hope everybody enjoyed this show. We will be doing more interviews with other practitioners and whatnot when I come back to Saskatchewan. So remember, everyone, we're all here for a reason. There's not one of us that is better or less than anyone else. We're all meant to be here on this earth. And if you're having any troubles or anything, reach out. Or just if you think of somebody, reach out, because they're probably needing you. So I'm glad I'm here with my best friend and her girls and her husband and all the pets. I bid you farewell. Goodbye, but not forever. Have a wonderful evening, and goodbye from Halifax, Nova Scotia. Love you all. Have a good night.
Bye.